No, that's all good. Yeah, all good, bro. Alright. Bye, man. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Can anything really be all good and no bad?
Sorry, Walt, I was just on the phone. Did you say something?
Nah, all good.
Alright, sweet.
I said it too! Did I mean it?
Said what?
All good!
Alright, never mind then.
No, I said all good, James!
Okay, that's fine then.
No, that's not it!
Alright, just don't worry about it.
It's much too late for that.
Oh, Walt! I came out so sympathetic for you. I sounded almost pitiful.
I'll take it as a glowing
Review of your acting skills. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly right. Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast by the Greensboro Commander community. It's a GCP by the GCC and POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. We're all uniting forces to help you to have better games of Commander. I'm your host, Walt.
And hello, Commander players. I'm your other host, James. Now, we know how our podcast works. We've got an incoming transmission. We're going to talk about some stuff about Commander. But before we jump into that, I did just very quickly want to say to all of you lovely listeners, if you like our content and wish to support us, the best way to do so is on our Patreon, which we now have. Feel like real creators now. Actually got like a website that's, got our branding on it. We've got a theme song and everything.
We're now 12 feet tall.
I know. We've got no ego at all. But yes, if you want to, there's incredible tiers on Patreon to sign up to. You can have exclusive games with Walt and I, have an exclusive Discord channel that only the Patreons get, and all of these other incredible things. So go to patreon.com/getcommanderpodcast to see all the tiers and become a Space Commander yourself.
Yeah. Well,
Speaking of which,
we do have that incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
The most frequently played commander cards are typically powerful in all situations. However, using cards that are powerful in only some situations will force you to make more difficult decisions. Over time, these decisions will transform you into a more skillful commander player.
Interesting. So, if I'm not mistaken, did the Space Commanders just call good cards bad for you? Is that what they're saying?
I guess they kind of did. They're not saying good cards are bad. They're just saying you should play bad cards because it'll make you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is probably, maybe they were inspired. Command Zone had that recent episode where they talked about bad cards that they still play. So basically, like, cards that they know are bad, they're not the best versions of the effect, but they love them anyway and continue to play them because they like the way they feel when they play them.
I did listen to that episode.
It was a good one.
It was really good, yeah. Shout out Command Zone for calling yourselves out.
Yes.
That's some good humbling, man. Yeah. I like that.
It had a really strong Rachel Weeks vibe, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I could never sing Rachel's praises enough. But this seems like what they want from us for this episode of our podcast is more so what you get when you play less powerful cards, I guess, is how they talked about them.
The weirder cards.
Yeah. It seems like they kind of divided the cards into two camps. There was sort of the two sentences there. They talked about cards that are powerful in all situations and cards that are powerful in some situations. Okay, they kind of want us to move into that second camp rather than the first. So what do you think, like, which cards come to mind for you that are powerful in all situations?
I mean, immediately my brain went, okay, I'm on EDH Rec. I click on any commander.
Yes.
What are the cards that are at the top of the page?
I mean, even the, like, EDH Rec actually have, like, a top cards page as well. So even that one would probably just be like, I mean, this makes sense, right? Like, if they're powerful in all situations, they're probably going to go in almost any deck. They're basically talking about staples, really.
Yes, I think staples is probably like the colloquial term that we use for, cards that have a specific color identity. So, like, monocolored cards are usually considered staples because they go in, like, quote, all white decks. Like, I'm thinking specifically, like, Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile.
Yes.
They are the top 2 most efficient single target exile spells in our format, which includes every goddamn card ever printed.
Yeah.
So clearly, if you're running a white magic commander deck, you should put Path and Swords in there, right?
Yeah,
because they're like the best.
If you want your deck to be as powerful as you can possibly make it, then those cards are like the absolute best choice for you. That you can't beat the efficiency. They cost 1 mana.
There isn't a single other spell that does it as efficiently as that. So it's like if you've got white in your commander's color identity, why not?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes your deck really efficient, consistent. Best version of it.
Absolutely. In a similar vein, like Smothering Tithe, This card turns your opponent's card draws into treasures. Treasures tap and sacrifice to add a mana of any color. So, of course, if you're in a 5-color deck, Smothering Tithe, if anything, is better than in a mono-white deck.
It also allows our friend Brad to scream at you across the table, "Do you pay the 2 for Smothering Tithe?"
Everybody knows someone who screams at them about paying the 2. Or paying the 1.
Or paying the 1 for Heuristic Study.
Yes, well, that's probably a similar camp, actually, Heuristic Study.
Yeah, I mean, playing both of them, you're just a dick.
Do you pay the 3?
For that card draw and spell?
Yes, do you? You're going to do it?
That cantrip's going to cost you 3 extra.
Ugh, disgusting. I mean, even like sort of board wipey sort of effects, like Cyclonic Rift is probably arguably like at least top 3 best board wipes in our format. Yes, it costs 7 mana, but it's instant speed. It doesn't touch your stuff at all. It gets rid of everything your opponents are doing.
Yeah, and it's also like modal as well. So it's got that 1 and a blue bounce single target non-land permanent. So it's like it's modal. It's one-sided board wipe. It's mono blue, so it goes in any blue color identity deck. It's just the best version of the effect.
Yeah, even the overload cost is only 6 in a blue, so you only ever need the 1 blue pip to cast.
Realistically, if you're in a 5-color deck, it's not hard to run Cyclonic Rift.
I've seen it. I've definitely seen it in 5-color decks because it's that good.
I've seen it frequently.
Yeah, it's that strong. And in blue, we have free counter spells.
Yeah,
you see these probably more in like the higher end of the sort of power level scale.
Usually these are quite... I mean, the cards we've talked about already, like Smothering Tides has got a bit of a price tag on it.
Yeah.
So does Cyclonic Rift.
Definitely.
But counter spells are like in the league of their own.
Yeah. Force of Will is obviously one of the best in our format. It's the one where you can pay a life and exile a blue card from your hand and cast it for free. Counters anything. Counters target spell. Fierce Guardianship's one that we probably see slightly more often in casual, I would say.
I mean, it was printed in a Commander Precon.
Yeah.
So it's a Commander card.
It's a Commander card explicitly, yeah. So this is the one that's free if you control your Commander. Counters a non-creature spell specifically. But if you are playing a deck where you care about all your creatures sticking around and someone tries to cast Blasphemous Act, Fierce Guardianship is just like arguably the most efficient way of stopping someone from doing that. Best
version of protection. I'm going to pause here. Side tangent.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a prediction on record that I reckon Commander Masters... We'll talk about the price tag another day. I reckon we're going to get a reprint of this cycle of free spells that we saw in the Commander Precons.
Fierce Guardianship.
That's my prediction.
Flawless Maneuver. Yeah. There's the black one that exiles. Obscuring Haze I really love.
That's a sick one.
Deadly Rollick is the black one.
Also very strong.
What's the red one?
Creature. Who cares? The black and blue one are the best. Who cares?
It's true.
Green is a close third. Like, it's pretty cool. The
White is pretty good. Doesn't it keep your creatures indestructible?
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty good protection.
It's still good wrath removal. Yeah. I think... I admittedly think Obscuring Haze is probably slept on. I think it should see more play than it does. It's only like $4 or something.
I've lost to it with you.
Yes.
You have cast
my new mono green deck, definitely it pulls it out a good chunk of the time. It's pretty strong. It's a strong card. Speaking of strong cards, the best way to find your strong cards is going to be tutors. And black has Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor. You can even start to stretch to like Grim Tutor. But like these cards see play... Likewise to some of the ones we just mentioned in 5-color decks because they just pull the best card out of your deck for very little mana. I mean, Demonic Tutor, 2 mana, get any card in your deck, put it in your hand, don't have to reveal. It's like arguably one of the best cards in our format.
Yeah, I think tutors are just like as a blanket term, especially when it tutors any card. So specifically the black ones usually do this. And like you said, to a stretch, Grim Tutor. But I think they're ubiquitous because if you're playing a commander deck, you've got a certain strategy. That strategy will have a win con and it's usually on a card in your deck.
Yeah.
So if you've got black, you can use that card as an extra version of your win con.
Yeah, I mean, I think the nitpick nitpicking nerds phrase this in a really good way of saying Demonic Tutor is a second copy of the best card in your deck, but it's actually better than that because it's the best. It can
also be something else. That
it can be anything else that you need. So yeah, if you need to hit your land drop, Demonic Tutor gets your land drop. Like, it's better than the best card in your deck, which is crazy to say out loud.
You would Demonic Tutor for a land.
If I owned a copy, yeah, maybe.
I only own one copy of Demonic Tutor, and it's Japanese, and it looks sick. I would
not be shocked if the Japanese version is more expensive, knowing how many weebs play our game.
That's true. I did trade my way for it, but it looks really cool.
It does look really cool. It does look really cool. Still in black, Reanimate is probably the most efficient way to pull a creature card out of a graveyard. Yep. It even steals your opponent's stuff, so if Demonic Tutor represents the best card in your deck at any given time, Reanimate represents the best card in anyone's graveyard at any time.
Anyone's graveyard, yeah, it's really strong.
Yep.
I mean, you can even go into like the ramp section of kind of the realm. We talked about Smothering Tithe, but one of the cards that's been a really big talking point and is seeing play everywhere, and this is why the rules committee are like, oh, do we ban it, do we not? Dockside Extortionists.
Yeah.
We didn't quite touch on this goblin in our ban list episode a lot.
Not a lot, but we did mention him.
We did mention him, but this card is now... It used to be... I mean, for context, the card was printed in a Commander Precon that was only had a limited printing.
Yes.
I managed to buy that Precon when it was printed, so I bought it for like $60, which was incredible.
Yep.
And now this goblin is worth a ridiculous amount. I think it's still sitting around that $80, $100 mark.
Because it got a reprint in Double Masters, which brought it down a bit, but it's still at least $50.
But I think following the reprint in Double Masters, it's now seeing even more play in our format.
Which then makes it more popular and more people want it, which brings the price up,
Which also makes the rules committee go, oh shit, do we now need to ban it?
Yeah. I think they specifically mentioned that when it got that reprint, they were like, actually, this is back on our radar, because now it's much more likely to see this in casual pods, because people will pull them in their packs.
There's one everywhere.
Yeah. And look, the most efficient way to end the game, if you're playing a creature-based deck, is probably going to be Craterhoof Behemoth, right? This is the 8-drop that makes all your creatures get +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. So if you've got 10 1/1s, doesn't matter if they're the 1/1s, you've cast your Craterhoof Behemoth, they all get +10/+10.
And it's the most efficient one. It's like 100% the most efficient one. I actually, because you can tutor it easily as a creature, you can put it onto the battlefield without casting it.
With Tooth and Nail or something.
There's really, really easy ways to like slam Hoof down. So it's usually when someone's like, oh, in Rule 0, I'm going to play my token deck. I'm like, you're running Hoof?
Yeah.
Like, because I'll instantly know, like, I'm judging your power level based on this single card.
I mean, it really tells you, like, how quickly someone can win a game, like, based on their board state. You know, someone's got like 5 1/1s, and everyone's got 20 life. In general, you'd be like, oh, I don't think they're going to win this turn. But if someone's got a Hoof in their deck, maybe?
There's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance. Love that. So look, these are playable in a wide array of circumstances. Cards like Smothering Tithe and Dockside Extortionist make treasures, which produce any color. Demonic Tutor has only a single black pip. Like, I hope you're getting the feel that these cards are so applicable to so many different circumstances. Like, they are the cards that I think the Space Commanders are talking about when they say these are powerful in all circumstances.
Yeah, if you've got that in your commander's color identity, even if, like, you're not in a treasure token synergy, if you run Smothering Tithe, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
If you've got like white, and even if you don't represent white a lot in your colors, of like maybe you've got like 1 plains in your deck, like 1 way to produce white mana, and you still run Smothering Tithe, it's going to be decent because then you can produce more treasures which produce other colors of mana. Like, it's always going to be good.
Absolutely. And I guess the thing I really want to make clear here as well is that, like, these are played a lot for a reason. Like, they are just the best versions of their effects. So, like, we're not saying, you know, bashing people for, like, owning a copy. Like, if you have a Smothering Tithe in your deck, we're not, like, calling you out. We're just saying these are, like, pretty well known as the most efficient versions of those effects, right?
So well done on including them in your deck. You know what the most efficient ones are.
If all you want is power, you've found the right cards. Those are absolutely some of them, but the Space Commanders did say they wanted us to look at what might happen to us as players if we're looking at cards that are powerful still, but in a sort of smaller percentage of the time. So these aren't your Smothering Tithe, which is like, no matter what, if you have 4 mana, you should probably cast that spell. These are kind of like is this good now? Maybe I'll need it later. Maybe I need to wait. Maybe I need another card first. Like,
or
that kind
I need
of thing.
to choose a specific target for this.
Yeah.
Or like,
Usually, these are going to be sort of more synergistic, I would say, in our decks, which is definitely an upside.
Which also, we've spruiked on this podcast before, how much we love it when a card that you think is, like, bad is great in a particular deck.
Yeah.
These are the cards that we're talking about when we say, like, this card is great in insert commander or strategy here.
Yeah, and I think you could even make an argument that this is kind of what Commander is all about, right? Like, it's a singleton format. It's definitely about freedom of expression and using cards that you like. And, you know, there's like a million cards that are legal in Commander. They kind of want you to find weird ones to put in your decks, I would argue. Especially when you look at some of Sheldon's deck lists. Sheldon Menery from the Commander Rules Committee plays some weird cards in his decks.
But he's as old as time itself. So he probably knows all those cards when they were printed, pulled them from a pack himself.
Yes, exactly right.
I'd love to be that.
I mean, yeah. Imagine. Father time. So what are some of these cards that we think are powerful in only some situations? Because those are the ones that the Space Commanders want us to look at.
You're really good at this when you deck build. You're very good. I reckon you've got a good list of cards in your head already.
Yeah.
I do. Like, I know for a fact that you, like, in a game recently, we were playing a +1 counters build, and you played a card that made me go, what the heck is this? And it was the one that puts +1 count, or makes insects to how many +1 counters were put on creatures.
Oh my god. Oh yeah, Iridescent Hornbeetle. Yeah.
Wild card.
I'd never seen anyone play this card until I put it in my deck. This is like a 5-mana creature that in your end step, you make an insect for every +1 counter you've put on creatures you control this turn.
So that is so specific.
So specific. But if you're playing a deck that is like only doing +1 counters, like my Mowu deck, you know, readily puts like 10 counters on Mowu in a turn.
That's 10 insects.
Yeah, move to your end step, make 10 1/1s. That's pretty.
Insane.
It's kind of sick for 5 mana. And it's every end step, or every one of your end steps.
Well, go on, give me some more.
All right,
I want to know some more weird ones.
Speaking of sort of like swords and path,
sure.
Luminate Primordial is this is part of the Primordial cycle, though the 7-mana creatures that have an ETB.
Is this the white one?
This is the white one. This one swordses, so exiles a creature, they gain life equal to its power. One creature on each of your opponent's boards.
So it swords 3 things.
3 things. So it's like casting Swords to Plowshares 3 times, but on one card.
What's its mana cost?
7.
Okay.
But it's a creature. So, if you're playing a Flicker deck, or anything that's good with ETBs...
Yeah, or like if you're playing Conjurer's Closet.
Yes!
Oh, that's just so good.
Yeah, every end step cast 3 copies of Swords to Plowshares.
Invest 7 mana now, paid dividends in the end step.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Vega the Watcher, I play in my Tygam deck specifically. This is the 3-mana creature that's Azorius from Kaldheim. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card.
Oh, it's the owl.
Yes, it's an owl.
Gorgeous art. Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So yeah, like in my Tygam deck, it's a rebound
the
deck.
rebound. Yeah. That's sick. Every upkeep, you're like drawing 3 cards. That's nuts.
Some of them are cantrips. You're like casting Ponder again and drawing 2 cards.
So
like cast Ponder, draw a card,
resolve
look
Ponder.
Look at top 3, draw card.
That's nuts.
Yeah, super cool. I love cards that have that are really risky, like Chance for Glory.
I have seen you like pretty much go fuck it and cast Chance for Glory.
It is so wild. So this is the one that says creatures you control gain indestructible. Take next turn after this one. At the beginning of that end step, you lose the game. Basically, the next turn's end step. Importantly, by the way, if you have like a Seer's Sundial effect, this is such a tangent, but I don't care. If you have a Seer's Sundial sort of effect where you can end the turn, Chance for Glory does not say creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of your next turn. It says creatures you control gain indestructible.
Oh my god.
If you have a way of like making sure you don't lose in your next end step, your creatures just have indestructible forever. The ones that were on the battlefield when you resolve Chance for Glory.
That's not even a count. It's not a like indestructible
counter. No, they're just indestructible. Just adds a line of text to the cards.
That's so cool.
Super strange.
So this is one of the ones that work with the Obeka Seer Sundial.
Unfortunately not in Obeka's colours. So you had to be in like a 4-color or 5-color kind of thing. But yeah, if you're playing like a 5-color end of the turn tribal deck,
I want to see that deck.
It would be cool. But like, this is super risky. Like you get an extra turn, but if you don't win in that turn, you've lost. Unless you're doing weird shenanigans.
Alright, well moving into my colours in blue.
Sure.
I'm going to share some. In a card that I run in my Yeleva deck, I run a board wipe called Flood of Tears.
Oh, yeah.
Bounces all non-land permanents.
Yes.
But after that, if you return 6 non-land permanents this way, you put a permanent that you could have in your hand onto the battlefield.
Yeah, this card's sick.
It's really strong, and it's also 6 mana, which isn't... It is overcosted, but it's not massively overcosted considering if you have a permanent that's like 4 or 5 mana that you put down back onto the battlefield... You've got the investment back there, kind of.
Oh, I think I've resolved this once, and I had, it was in my Kaza deck. So in my Kaza deck, it costs blue, which is important.
That's really good in that deck, yeah.
But I think I had double vision in my hand. The 5 mana enchantment.
Oh, so you put 2 things back into the...
Oh, I don't think...
If you copy the spell, it resolves twice.
I don't think I had it on the battlefield. I think I had it in my hand. So I like Spell Swindle? No. Flood of Tears.
Yeah.
I Flood of Tears back everything to my hand, but then was like, oh cool, I'm going to drop this double vision so that the next time I go and do my next turn, I get copies of stuff.
Yeah. I mean...
So I cheated 5 mana there.
I just thought in a copy deck, though, if that resolves twice... It would bounce everything. Oh, no, but then it would bounce the thing you put in for the first time.
Oh, yeah, that's sad.
Oh, and then it wouldn't read... Actually, that's bad.
No, don't do it.
That's bad. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
You did say Spell Swindle, though. Which is another sick blue card that I did have in mind for, like, a replacement counterspell.
Sure.
It's 5 mana. That is way overcosted for a counterspell.
Yeah, I mean, like, the sort of standard for counterspells is the card counterspell, which is blue, counter a spell.
Yeah.
2 mana.
Yep.
This is 5, so comfortably over that.
Yes, over that. But when you counter the spell, whatever that spell's mana cost was, you make that many treasures.
Yeah, it's sick.
I've seen this run in Brutaclad decks before.
Oh.
And it is terrifying in Brutaclad.
Yeah,
like, Brutaclad is not a control deck by any means,
no.
but having a counterspell up is pretty good, and then you get to create a bunch of... Oh, you've got a Desolation Twin out? A 10/10.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically like... Yes, it says counter a spell, but it's kind of like counter target spell. In your next turn, if you have a good board state, win the game.
Yeah. In a similar vein, I'm thinking counterspells. In my Zaxara, my X-Spell Tribal deck.
Yes, this is the one that makes Hydras when you cast X spells. Yeah.
Yeah, so I run a card called Power Sync, which is blue and an X for counter target spell unless its controller pays X.
And then it has Delve? Is it this one? Or is it just like...
There is another one. Power Sync I don't think has Delve.
Okay.
I think it might be another... It's the exact same line of text.
Yeah.
But it also has Delve, which is the stronger version.
Maybe that is Power Sync. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah
possibly.
but yes, in general, these
in X-Spell decks, really good.
In an X-Spell deck, it's much better than it would normally be. Yeah, I love in my sort of mill kind of strategies, cards like Golgari Thug. This has the Dredge mechanic, which is super strange, and I believe Mark Rosenwald has said he's never printing this again. I think this is in, have you ever seen the Zero to Storm?
The list of mechanics that are never going to get reprinted.
It's quite amusing. It's it's the scale of how likely a mechanic is to see a reprint.
Storm is right at the top of that list.
It's literally called the Zero to Storm list, I believe. So Storm is the least likely. In the Storm category is Dredge.
Oh, wow.
Dredge is actually in the 10 on that
fairness,
level.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds. Explain Dredge. Go.
If a card that has Dredge is in your graveyard and you would go to draw a card, you can replace it and dredge that many cards equal to the Dredge number.
Boy,
and put that card into your hand.
Whoa, yeah, you nearly got it wrong.
Almost.
That's pretty good, though. That's not bad.
But it's not intuitive.
You had to, speed run that, and I saw the frantic panic on your face.
It's not a mechanic that comes easily to you until you understand how replacement effects work, and...
But in the right deck.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
In the right deck, it's incredible. Like, in your Merrin deck, Golgari Thug just absolutely fills your graveyard.
Oh, yeah, it's wild how quickly it does it.
It's insane.
Definitely. Speaking of graveyards, Dread Return. This is the 4-mana sorcery that returns a creature card from your graveyard to your battlefield, which is roughly the cost.
Oh, then it has it's got a flashback cost for sacrificing 3 creatures.
Yes,
that is insane.
Yeah,
no mana flashback.
Yeah,
that's sick.
No, it's 0 mana reanimate in the right circumstance.
This is really good in self mill decks, because if you accidentally mill instants and sorceries in your self mill decks, you can feel really upset. I know because I have a Scarab God deck.
Yes.
But when you mill Dread Return, you're sweet.
Yeah, I'll go the in my opinion absolute best deck I've ever seen Dread Return in. It is a mill deck, a Raumi of the Dead Tide. Because when you encore creatures, you get 3 copies.
Oh, that's genius.
It's literally just encore whatever you want, preferably something you want to die anyway. sacrifice all 3 of the things you encored, get something else back.
And permanently get it back
permanently
as well.
get it back.
That's so good.
It's so sick. It's unbelievably sick. To sort of do a parallel to Dockside Extortionist, not nearly as good, but cool. Mana Geyser. This is the 5-mana sorcery that adds red equal to the number of tapped lands your opponents control. Yeah. All your opponents. So sometimes you get 20 red out of this.
I was going to say, like, how are you going to compare something to Dockside? But, like, honestly, Mana Geyser in the right deck can be better than Dockside.
In the right circumstance,
if you're in a Spell Slinger deck that's like, or in a Storm deck.
Oh, yeah.
Mana Geyser's incredible.
Well, sometimes you can copy it in Spell Slinger
decks. And then you get, like,
decks.
40 mana.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Imagine having Jeska's Will, but like on steroids. That's what this card is.
Basically. I want to shout out another card from my Mowu deck, Wave of Vitriol. This is a 7-mana sorcery. Each player sacrifices all artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic lands they control.
Ew.
And then they search for a number of basic lands equal to the number of non-basic lands they sacrifice this way. So you always end up with the same number of lands you had, unless you run out of basics in your deck, which can happen.
But then you should be punished for having too expensive of a mana base.
I didn't want to say it, but I agree. But like it gets rid of all artifacts and enchantments, gets around indestructible because it makes you sacrifice them.
Full sacrifice is good.
But it's a 7-mana sorcery, so like it's a big cost to pay, but the upside is huge. And I think this is kind of the thing that I'm saying is the sort of thing that joins all of these cards together is they have a narrower range of times in Commander games where they are really, really strong, but they also, like, compared to the other cards, which had a very wide array of times where they could be played and they were good, but some of these narrower occasions can actually have higher upside, right? Like, Dockside, on the right board can make, like, 20 treasures, but Mana Geyser, if you copy it 3 times as a spell...
And then pump all that treasure into a fireball, could win you the game!
Yeah, like, that could be your win card. I mean, you could probably argue you could break Dockside in some similar way, but it's sort of saying, like, there's these narrower times where they're good, but because they're narrower, they are sort of these explosive times of being like, oh my god, I broke that card.
Yeah, well, I mean, just think about, like, how much time we spent talking about the so-called really, really good cards. And we were like, yep, this is really good. This is great. Yep, you should definitely run it. And then think about how we were acting just then when we were talking about, like, Wave of Vitriol and, like, Mana Geyser. We were like, oh, this is so much fun and wild.
It's definitely excitement-inducing. And I guess I will say that the focus moving into the sort of second half of this episode,
are we taking a
in a second, is the Space Commanders did specifically say they wanted us to find those cards that have are powerful in a smaller percentage of the time, basically.
Which we've gone through.
Which we've found a few of them. We sort of know what those are now. But they actually specifically said that playing those will make you a better Magic player.
Ah, right.
So I think in the second half, let's dive into how we think that playing these cards can actually make you a better Magic player. So, before that, I think we better have a thrifty interlude. Oh, you're hopping in on that one now.
Yeah,
all right, I
reckon
that.
It'll sound really cool in headphones if people listening both have voices.
Like, I can believe that. Yeah.
Nice.
All right. So
I hope you enjoyed that.
There's lots left to cover, obviously, like we talked about, but we do want to hear a little something about a thrifty cards. This won't be breaking your bank by any means. And as is tradition, I will bring the card to life in a monologue form.
In a weird way. In a weird way.
It's me. I think that's implied.
You make it sound so academic. I'm going to do a monologue. You're weird.
You're
professionally weird.
I'm putting that on my resume. Professional weirdo.
Do you want me to read the card?
Yes, please do.
Sure. Well, this one's kind of insane. Great card. Single green mana for an enchantment aura called Instill Energy. So you can enchant a creature, and the enchanted creature can only attack messed that up completely. The enchanted creature can attack as though it had haste. So basically gives the enchanted creature haste.
Except you can't tap it for abilities or something else.
Kind of. It's still pretty good.
It's still good.
But this is the crazy bit that I love. For 0 mana, so at instant speed, whenever you like, you can activate an ability on this enchantment that says, untap enchanted creature. Activate only during your turn and only once each turn.
Do you feel as though caffeine has too much power over your life? As if some days that morning coffee or tea is all that gets you up in the morning, and that afternoon energy drink is all that keeps you awake? What if I told you you could operate at twice the speed and never sleep again? All this from just a touch of the finger of a god. We don't know what he's the god of. Don't ask questions. I haven't felt this awake since I found out what Rule 34 was. Don't ask me about that either. Get budgeted.
Yeah, I do feel like caffeine has a bit of a grip on my life. And I unfortunately do know what Rule 34 is.
Well then, Instill Energy will have no effect on you.
Instill Energy does sound like a really good energy name drink.
Yeah.
It
does actually.
Energy drink name.
Instill Energy. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I can see the market.
It would be spelled like NSTL. Instill
energy.
And then NRG as the energy.
Yeah.
Instill energy.
And it'd be like a 5 on its side for the N.
Sort of feels like the Shoe 5 gun. Yeah. Text posts of these weird things that I write are released regularly on Discord, so you can join our Discord server. It's linked in the show notes if you'd like to see them there as they come out. And you can also see me turn some of these into videos over on TikTok at _Commander Community. So don't forget to follow us on there if you'd like to see those as they come out.
Yeah, and you can tell how old that card is just by how badly I read it. That card is worded so poorly.
It's worded very, I think
That's a whiteboarded card, surely.
It was.
Yeah,
it was. I actually owned the whiteboarded
Did you
version.
really?
Yes.
Of course you did.
I think the original version of the card says, enchanted creature is not affected by summoning sickness.
Yeah, that's
which
even
is funny
weirder.
because it's like it actually is sort of more intuitive than saying it may attack as though it had haste,
but
can't
it's not activate abilities.
Yeah,
but that activated ability at instant speed during combat is pretty swift.
That's very cool. Weird. You can do it once. You can do it any time in your turn, but only once a turn.
It's got to have a use in some deck somewhere.
Right? I mean, basically any deck where your commander has an activated ability, it's not going to give it haste on that turn, but it lets you untap it once a turn for free. Yeah. So,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
If it's in the right deck, it makes us a better Magic player.
Yes, that's true. We're back in. Good stuff. So, we want to talk about some of the things that you will gain by using cards that are, quote, bad. Cards that have narrower ranges of uses. Cards that are, I think the Space Commander said, powerful in specific situations rather than all situations.
Yeah.
So basically some of the things you can learn, and they specifically said that we'll become a better Magic player if we are using these cards. So I guess this second half can be kind of the things that you will get better at as a Magic player by playing bad cards.
The personal MTG growth, commander growth in using bad cards. I actually see a lot of benefits from using cards that are more specifically used in particular decks, and I think it starts off right at the beginning in the deck building process.
Yeah.
I think that when you start using, and specific, when you look at our deck building template, we have numbers that are attributed with each kind of section of the deck building process. So we have 10 ramp, 10 card draw, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
But in so many situations, if you're in certain colors, you can be like, oh, well, I'll just fill all of these 10 slots of card draw with the best card draw spells that I know in these colors, and the ones that come up at the top of the page on EDH Rec, I'll move on.
Yeah,
but in certain situations, you're missing out on a lot of synergy.
I think you are. And I think the other thing that happens to you is, we said minimum 10 card draw.
Yeah.
But I think if you're playing a deck that has Heuristic Study in it and has tutors in it, you are probably building suboptimal decks, but because the cards in your deck are so good at doing the things you need them to do, you're kind of not learning the lesson. If you play bad card draw and you play 10 bits of card draw, sometimes you'll play your deck, you'll play test it, and you'll go, actually, I keep running out of cards. I need more card draw in this deck, or I need to reevaluate the card draw. And that's a good lesson you've learned about card draw by kind of doing it wrong.
Yeah, I think tutors are a key culprit of this effect, where they become extra versions of every category in your deck, especially the demonic tutor, the vampiric tutor, those tutors that get any card. You can essentially go, okay, well, that counts as a card draw, that counts as a ramp spell because it gets me that other card.
Yeah.
So it means that, I guess, as a commander growth lesson, it means you have to pay more attention to the numbers, which, as we know from our deck building template episode, when you learn the rules and know how to apply them correctly, then you can start breaking them because you're aware of how important they are. This makes you painfully aware of it.
Yeah, this is almost like the step before learning the rules of actually making a bunch of mistakes. And I think that good cards kind of shelter you from some of these mistakes. I actually have been recently watching a series of gameplay videos. I don't want to call them out because I am saying something negative about them. They are really good videos, but I've been looking at some of the deck lists that they've been playing, and there's one particular player on this YouTube channel who plays a lot of decks with 30 lands in them, which is way too low. And I was looking at these decks, and I was going like, this is obviously not a CDH deck.
Drops?
Well, they did in a game that I was watching, and I was like, I wonder how many lands they're playing, and they were not playing enough. And I was like, well, that'll probably do it. But they were playing like really strong tutors and really strong card draw, and I kind of thought to myself, man, they probably play a good number of games where this isn't a problem for them because their card draw is so good, or their tutors are so good, and so they're actually not learning the mistake, which is playing 30 lands. I think unless your curve is extremely low or you're playing CDH, 30 lands is way too low.
Yeah, Yuriko runs on 32 lands, but that's because every spell that I actually cast is like maximum 3 mana.
Well, and your effectively 2-mana commander draws you a card every turn.
Yes, and I'm winning by turn 5.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have the justification for it, but this was like 30 lands in every deck.
Yeah.
So yeah, like playing the really good, the Ristic Studies, the tutors is actually sheltering you from playing enough card draw, enough lands, even enough removal, I would argue. Like, some people are probably running like 2 to 3 removal spells, but because they find them so much of the time through their tutors and their card draw, they feel like that's enough. But when you play with the less efficient versions of card draw and the less efficient tutors, or if you lean more towards card draw and less towards tutors, you're going to find those removal spells a lot less of the time, and you're probably going to go like, get to a bunch of games and go, man, I wish I found my Naturalize that game, because there was an enchantment on the board I needed to deal with on turn 3, and I never dealt with it.
Yeah, I think just from a deck building perspective as well, I think if you just go, okay, I need removal spells, I'll get swords, I'll get path, there we go, there's a couple of removal spells, done. You're missing out on something that's so, like, I always view it as like getting into the gym as a commander player. When you go on Scryfall and you do the research, that feels like doing a fucking good pump at the gym. Because you're like, I'm now really aware of what actually synergizes with my deck and why these cards are good. So if I'm in a +1 counters build, is there any removal spell that gets me +1 counters on my creatures?
Yeah.
Oh shit, on Scryfall, yeah, there is. I can see that now. That's way better than Path to Exile for me.
Yeah.
So like you miss out. And also that's like an experience thing as well. It doesn't only make you a better commander player, but you're actually missing out on a lot of the fun of deck building.
Yeah, well, like you were saying earlier when we were looking at the cards that had a narrow range of uses, the quote bad cards.
We got excited about it.
We got really excited about it, because that's the fun of Commander, is finding those niche strategies and stuff. And I think speaking of fun, another thing that you get by playing these sort of less efficient versions of cards, or the bad cards, is it does bring your power level down, but in a good way, in a fun way specifically. Yeah. I think that removing some of these staples, these cards that just are the best versions of every effect, does tend to bring you sort of towards that kind of middle zone of the power level spectrum, if you like. And I think, we should always keep in mind, and we know this because we talk about it a lot when we're talking about what we want to talk about on this podcast. We know that most players are playing towards the bottom end of the power level curve.
Yes,
or between the bottom and the middle, basically.
Yeah, when we did our CEDH episode that we kind of did a bit of myth busting, we first myth that we busted was it's not that common.
No.
Because like CEDH is like, yeah, you are solving Commander, but that's not what most Commander players say that they love about Commander.
No.
If you were to ask an average Commander player, what do you love about it? They'll probably say, oh, I love the social aspect, the fact that I can express myself through my deck, and the fact that I can find weird synergies and stuff like that. None of that says I can play the most efficient removal spells in my format and remove my opponents and win the game.
Yeah.
I love Commander. Commander, good game. I'm robot.
Oh, the CDH robot has appeared. Not again.
I look at database at least once every 3 weeks to make sure I am playing optimal card draw.
Oh, no, James, the CDH players who we know listen to this podcast are going to be deeply offended, of course.
I don't think they will be, because I think they understand the fact that CDH is a different, and we said it as well, it is a mind state, a mindset, and a metagame.
Yeah.
Whereas there is a separate mind state and a separate metagame for casual players, and specifically the lower end of the casual players, where playing cards like these much more inefficient versions of effects are going to help you have more fun games of Commander. Because in CDH players, their fun comes from that mind state and that metagame.
Yeah.
So they're not actually looking for this.
No.
So I don't think they care at all.
I think it's a question of priorities, right?
Yes.
Like the CDH player is looking for a particular game experience, whereas I think deck building is so much more integral of a part of what makes the casual player. Yeah, brewing. Is something that we like so much, and especially in those sort of casual sort of games, and towards the bottom of that power curve. I think that playing these sort of slightly lesser versions of the card, it does bring your power level down. But I would like to argue that I think that's a good thing. I think especially, I know some of our listeners are very enfranchised and very, real optimizers of their deck lists. But throwing in these synergy pieces over your most efficient versions of each card, even if the card that you turn to is not necessarily Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile, I know some people who put an Arcane Signet in every deck.
Yep.
And yes, that card makes that deck better. I'm not going to take that away from you. I think it's probably one of the best.
2 mana, taps for any color you need.
Yeah, one of the best mana rocks in our format, definitely. But you might be missing out on some synergy you can find that will bring your power level down a little bit, that might make you sit at a sort of slightly better table, because most of the places that we go to play Commander are going to be filled with players who are sitting around that power level.
Yeah, this is a really rare moment on our podcast. I think a lot of our suggestions for our listeners generally come at are you new to Commander? And we have a lot of advice for new Commander players. But I think this piece of advice actually goes for experienced Commander players. For example, if you're a player, and I've had actually our listeners talk to me about this on our Discord, where they're going, I'm winning way too often. I remember you said once in an episode on our podcast that you should win approximately 25% of games.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you're playing perfect games of Commander and perfect rule zeros, then ideally you kind of want to win 25% of the time. Yeah.
I've had a couple of listeners come up to me and go, I'm winning too often.
Yeah.
And I'm actually not enjoying it because it's too efficient. I'm always blasting through it.
I think I even said that a couple episodes ago in the Path to Victory episode. Yeah.
And I think this is a really good way of kind of making the game that challenging, fun adventure that you used to have, trying to get to that win. Because these cards really make you think about your plays and, make you grind. And it's going to make it more interesting because you're working harder for it. You have to really think about it.
Yeah, and it's going to mean that when you find the right combination of synergistic cards, it's going to be fun. Playing at this power level is fun. I built this mono green list recently. I don't talk about it all the time. This Mowu deck.
Sorry, is that the +1 counters build? The mono
yeah. I love it.
I don't think I've heard about this deck before.
I just pull it out all the time because
definitely haven't seen it recently.
Poor James has been subjected to too much of it. I
genuinely think every game of Spell Table I've played with you in the past 2 to 3 weeks has been Mowu.
Yeah, I love it so much. It's just really fun. It sits at a really good power level, I think, where it's strong, and when it gets the balls rolling, it works really, really efficiently and really, really well. But I don't feel like I'm too far ahead of people. It's very rare to sit down at a game and go I think I'm in the wrong deck here. I think I'm playing the wrong power level.
I think that's because you're using these more obscure cards that you're getting that really big enjoyment from.
Yeah.
Because you could run, for example, what's that hardened scales? That's just the go-to. You don't have that in your list, do you?
No, I don't have hardened scales.
Exactly, but you're in a +1 counters deck that's green. You should totally run hardened scales.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it would make the deck better, I think.
It would.
Almost definitely. But yeah, instead I'm playing Thundering Mightmare.
What the fuck is Thundering Mightmare?
Thundering Mightmare has Soul Bond, so you're familiar with Soul Bond.
Yes, I remember this card.
So Soul Bond is when, I won't go into it, but basically when the creature ETBs, the super short answer is it kind of partners with another creature on your field. It Soul Bonds with it.
It's like an aura, but only when both creatures are on the battlefield that they get the ability.
And they both stay creatures, and then if either of them leaves the battlefield, you basically lose it. So they're soul bonded together, and you get a benefit as long as they're together, pretty much. But the soul bond for Thundering Mightmare is whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a +1 counter on each of the creatures. So Thundering Mightmare
gets 2.
Yeah,
so if you put
that's the tech. Yeah. Thundering Mightmare and Mowu, and then they get stupid big. But the other thing you can do with it is you could soul bond Thundering Mightmare with Mindless Automaton. This is the 4 mana creature that ETBs with 2 +1 counters on it, and you can remove 2 +1 counters from it to draw 2 cards.
Oh, that's cool.
So with Thundering Mightmare...
Oh my god, that's like build your own Ristic study in mono green.
Oh my god.
That's incredible. It's because every time that player casts a spell, you get 1 +1 counter.
Yes.
So it's half as good as Ristic Study, spread across 2 cards in green.
But you also get a very big Thundering Nightmare out of it.
Which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
That's sick.
It's super
Build
fun.
your own Ristic Study.
And this is like the thing I'm enjoying so much about playing in this power level at the moment is like that's just one thing you can do. But Thundering Nightmare has like so many different uses with particular cards in my deck. Is it like the most efficient version of a +1 counter
Hardened
thing?
Scales is much better.
Yeah, well, and also like literally remove Thundering Nightmare or the other creature, the effect is gone.
Yes, true. A Path to Exile gets rid of that.
Yeah, the Path to Exile almost exiles Thundering Nightmare because after that effect is gone, it's just like a 4-mana 4/4.
Yeah.
Not good. Yes. And bringing your power level down to this level is fun. I guarantee you, if you bring your power level down by playing the bad cards, you'll actually have more fun. Guarantee it.
Yeah, I reckon so. And I just said earlier something about like the players that I've spoken to are really struggling to find the lower power level that they can have fun at. But when you are forced into this like less efficient version of a game, it actually forces you to really sequence your plays correctly.
Yeah.
I've found that like a lot of cards that are just generically good, you can just throw out of your hand, spam. Especially in like Spellslinger archetypes, I've noticed. You can spam them and then they're always good. But in like the lower end of category of goodness, I guess, in these like less efficient versions.
Sure.
When you look at it, you're like, oh, this is good, but if I do it in this order, it's actually a non-bow. But if I play this first, oh, then it works. Oh, then it's like 10 times better.
Well, I think this is exactly what the Space Commanders are talking about, is like, by playing the less efficient versions of the cards, yes, you have to sequence your plays properly, which teaches you about the cards and how they interact with one another.
Yeah.
I've been told so many times, I remember, especially in my early days, someone would say to me something really simple. Someone who was much better at Magic would be playing with me at Commander, and they'd say like, oh, you know, if you cast the spells in this other order, you would have drawn like 3 more cards. And those things really blew my mind.
They're like
wow.
light bulb moments.
Yeah.
Go, oh, right.
I'm supposed to do the thing that, you know, triggers... Yeah. I'm supposed to play my Beast Whisperer first before I empty my hand. This is basically throwing back to The Order, the episode we released way back. But it's really, really important. And I think that playing the bad cards, I totally agree with you. It actually forces you to make more complex decisions, which is wild to think about. You'd sort of think like, oh, if I'm playing the best versions of the cards, you know, I'm playing CDH, I'm making complex decisions. And we're not denying that CDH is complicated. But I think that the weird synergies you have to find at lower power levels and with less efficient cards actually can be quite complicated, and arguably, in some instances, more complicated than CDH board states.
I'm going to draw a parallel to a Planeswalk I did a while ago about how I've been playing Modern Warfare 2 recently.
Sure.
So I have been like using a loadout of a specific set of guns that I was using in the last season.
Sure.
And obviously when a season comes around, the meta changes, there's new guns and they nerf things and all this kind of stuff. I am still using my old guns. And I've found that I've had to play the game in a much more different way because my loadout was a meta loadout from Season 1.
Right.
It is now basically dog water. It's terrible. It's really bad. But I've now had to learn how to play the map in a much more efficient way to make my setup work better.
Yeah.
And then just like literally a couple of days ago, I changed to a more meta loadout. I went for like 30 kills, 2 deaths.
Wow.
Like, I went ham.
Because you'd had this new shifted mindset. Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. I think you see this in a lot of instances where when someone has to work harder to find their win or to compete, they improve at the skill that is required much faster.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about, like, athletes, when they're training for an event, some athletes even train at, like, really high altitude because then there's lower oxygen levels.
Oh, yeah.
So they're, like, using a less efficient version of their performance.
Yeah.
So when they get into a... Like, this is also a really great message for, like, CDH players then. If you're trying to get really, really good, play with shitter cards. So when you play with the good ones, you come back and you're like, oh, this is like breathing with actual good oxygen.
Yeah.
I can see this line really clearly now.
Totally. And I think that the other thing that you get, like, you will improve in skill, but also making these correct decisions will feel really rewarding. I've been playing my Chaser deck quite a lot recently, which is my sort of aristocrats. It's got a little bit of a reanimated theme. It's got a pretty strong sort of weenies theme. Weenies, if you don't know,
White weenies.
it's just like a generic term for
Little
decks
creatures.
that have small creatures. Yeah, creatures with low power and toughness or low mana value, that kind of thing.
The deck is also themed around Electra, your partner,
Yes.
which is awesome.
It is, and this is kind of a theme that I found.
Custom tokens.
Yeah, they're really nice. I have to share them somewhere. There's a particular card I've been really enjoying in the deck called Graceful Restoration. This is I think it's Modern Horizons 2, or maybe Modern Horizons 1. 5-mana sorcery. You either return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield and put 2+1 counters on it.
Sure, like an overcosted reanimate with a bit of bonusing.
Yeah, with a little bit of bonus. Or you can return 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Double reanimate.
Double reanimate. It's 5-mana sorcery, so like it's not crazy breaking speed barrier kind of busted, but like getting 2 things back is really good.
Sure.
And when you're playing a graveyard kind of deck, like an aristocracy sort of deck, and you see that card in your hand, you're like, man, I've actually got to think about what cards I want to sacrifice.
What are the key pieces?
Like, when do I want them to get in there? When do I want to cast this? What do I want to get back? Is there stuff with ETBs that I can get back? Like, the sort of paths of play you have to think through versus Reanimate, which for a while was also in the list. Reanimate was just like, okay, what's the best creature card in the graveyard?
Zoop.
Grab that one. Like, it's a simple decision. And I found it more rewarding.
Yeah, when you've got a choice to get 2 back, you're like, ooh, do these 2 synergize together specifically? Or am I getting 1 aristocrats effect and 1 sack outlet so then I can get the engine turning?
Yeah.
That is, again, putting those ankle weights on while you're running makes you a faster runner.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We spoke last week about Mirari Conjecture. I think that was the Thrifty Interlude from memory.
Brilliantly broken card.
Love that card. It's the 5-mana blue saga that returns an instant card, I think, on chapter 1, a sorcery on chapter 2.
But then on chapter 3, it doubles all instant and sorceries.
Yes, till end of turn. Whenever you cast one, it's copied.
So when you're thinking sequencing, this card screams, you need a plan 3 turns ahead.
Oh yeah, you've got to really think ahead.
Yeah.
You've got to be like, what could I draw between now and then? I have to have an instant in my bin now.
Well, like,
I need a sorcery later.
Yeah, so you cast Mirari Conjecture and you're like, okay, I can get this sorcery back, but I'll cast this instant on this turn because next turn I'll get that instant back. And it's really good fun.
But it really rewards it when you get it right. When you get to that third turn, you're like, oh, I've got the exact spells I need right now. Copy. Man, that feels amazing.
Mana Geyser, copied. Fireball, win.
Yes, basically win. Yeah, exactly right. We also have mentioned hideaway cards before. In terms of my Mowu deck, I've been really enjoying Fight Rigging. This is the one where...
Oh, the enchantment one.
Enchantment, from Streets of New Capenna. When you move to combat, you put a +1 counter on a creature you control, and then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you cast the Hideaway card. But the cool thing is it's an enchantment that sticks around. So even once you've done the Hideaway thing, it just says at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1 counter on a creature you control. Which for 3 mana is like fine.
Yeah, that's
and you
actually
get a free
really
spell.
good. Yeah,
but you get
Super
a free spell
strong.
out of it, which is really cool. I love Hideaway cards because they really make you think like, okay,
the perfect time to do the thing.
Yes, because once you've picked, because you just basically pick the best card you can find, right? Like from the Hideaway cards. When you Hideaway 5, look at the top 5, find the best one, put it underneath. But then you're like, yeah, okay, when do I want this?
I'll give you a really strong example. I used Mosswort Bridge to cast Yeva. On my opponent's end step before my turn.
Whoa!
So after Yeva was casted on the battlefield, I then emptied my hand of bears. This is in my Ayula deck.
Yeva gives green creatures flash.
Yeah.
Oh my god, so because Hideaway ignores timing restrictions. I mean, Yeva has flash anyway.
Yeah.
But you were untapped, you had no mana, you had no flash at the time.
And on my opponent's end step, I
flashed out Yeva with
Hideaway, emptied my hand, buffed my board, and removed key blockers, went to my turn, won the game.
Wow.
Purely because I literally on my turn was like, I know Yeva is under my Hideaway, pass turn.
Yeah, I can leave up all my mana.
Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, you like Hideaway ignores timing restrictions, so it's kind of like a cool thing to leave up anyway. But you left up a thing that let you leave up more things.
Yes,
that's fun,
and it was
that's
really
the Jamesest green play I've ever heard in my entire life.
Green creatures featuring James. Play them at flash.
That is classic. Yep, absolutely. Well, I think the other thing that bad cards force you to do, or less efficient cards force you to do, is they do, by nature of being less efficient, force you to work harder for the wins that you get. I think, like, even when you talk about specifically, like, win con cards, we talked about in our deck building template before, we like sort of 3 to 4 win cons. If you're playing a combat-based deck, like, 3 of them can be combat, but 1 of them should be probably not combat.
Yeah, but if one of your win con is, like, hoof,
yeah,
you cast that, you win.
Yeah, like like we were talking about earlier, like, you know, 5 or 6 1/1s or something, and Crater Hoof Behemoth can win you the game. But if instead of Crater Hoof Behemoth, it was Thunderfoot Baloth.
Oh, is that the lieutenant?
It's the lieutenant one. So it's a 6-mana creature with trample that says, if you control. So lieutenant basically says if you have your commander, you get the lieutenant effect. The lieutenant effect of Thunderfoot Baloth is creatures you control get +2/+2 and have trample. So it's a static effect, which is really cool. Like, you just get them buffed permanently.
And it gives everything trample.
Everything trample.
Super good.
Really, really good. But it's only +2/+2. So if this is your, like, game-ending swing, or you want it to be, you're going to need a lot more creatures before you can win with a Thunderfoot Baloth.
You're going to need, well, if you think 5 1/1s become 5 3/3s, which
that's not going to get you the game.
That's not going to get
you the
game.
Very rarely.
But if you have 20 1/1s, and then they become 23 3s.
With trample.
You're winning.
Yeah.
You are definitely going to win.
Yeah, but you're going to have to sort of plan ahead. Like, sort of like we were talking about with the Mario Conjecture. But you're going to kind of have to work for it more. You're going to have to think like, okay, I know I have this, but I need a couple of turns to set up. I need to get a few more tokens. I need to prioritize, like, getting to those sorts of states.
Well, I think the other thing that this does as well is we talked about how tutors just kind of, like, tutor up that Crater Hoof Behemoth when you need it to win you the game on the spot. But I think if you're not running these tutors, not running the really efficient win cons, I think you actually have to go, okay, well, now I need, like, 4 or 5 win cons. I need some more effects that get me to the end of the game, because I think if I cast Thunderfoot Baloth, might not get me there, so maybe I put an N-Raise Forerunners in as well.
Yeah, or you might even just need to find a version of that effect some percentage of the time. So you'll need more of them if you're going to be relying on card draw for finding them. You know, if you've got 60 cards left in your library and 1 Thunderfoot Baloth you're trying to find, that's going to be a lot harder to find than a Thunderfoot Baloth and an N-Raise Forerunners. Yeah,
for
completely
sure.
agree. Yeah, totally. I think the other thing you'll need to do in terms of working for your win and that it's going to be a bit harder, you'll also need to protect your win cons. And this is that part of the deck.
So you run Teferi's Protection?
No.
But it's the best one. So you just run that. You're fine.
No.
Okay, I can see the pain on your face is quite horrific.
I don't like that card very much. Look, you could, yes. I guess that's a way.
And it is the best version of the effect.
Yes, it is. But I would be arguing more for playing cards like... I love Sejuri Refuge. This is the one that's a land on the other side.
Take out a basic land for it.
Yeah.
There you go. It's in your deck.
Straight up upgrade. Blacksmith Skill.
Oh, that's a favourite of yours.
Yeah, it's so good. Target permanent you control, gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Name a version of stopping that is not a counterspell. Like, how are you going to get around that?
I think once in one of our skits, you targeted my Zaxara with the Blacksmith Skill when I was targeting it with a Freed from the Real effect, and it lost me the game.
Yeah. I once in a game, actually, someone was playing a Tayam, I think it's... No, what's it called? You know the blue-white partner, whenever you cast a spell, put a +1 counter on it? Whenever a player casts a spell...
Ishin? Not Ishin. No, that's...
No, it's Ish something, though.
It is Ish something.
Oh, I forget. Anyway, it's the blue-white partner. And it has flying, and you put +1 counters on when you cast a spell. Anyway, it was like a sort of Voltron-y kind of deck. And I think they had like a feather down on the field, so whenever they were casting spells, they were getting them back. Yeah. Like, really, really cool. But anyway, I went to remove it, I think, and then they went to flicker it in response, and I responded with Blacksmith Skill on the creature.
Oh, get wrecked.
So you can't flicker it if it's got hexproof. And yes, I ended up removing the creature. They were very salty. I think they killed me on their next turn, mostly out of spite. I respect it. It was a bit of a blowout. But yes, having less efficient win cons will mean that you'll need more ways to protect your win con. And like the Space Commanders are saying, you should have those cards anyway. And actually playing the less efficient versions of the cards is going to teach you that lesson of, oh yeah, actually I should protect my win con. I should have some redirection spells in my deck. I should play Chef's Kiss.
That is good card.
Yes, yes.
Chef's Kiss.
It's exactly what it says it is, isn't it? Yeah. Totally. And we recommended 5 to 10, I think. Protection
yeah,
spells.
I think we said like 5, and then if like you're playing like that combo, really intricate glass cannon type of deck.
Yeah, then maybe play more.
Play more of that kind of stuff, yeah. For sure.
Definitely. Well, it can be difficult to resist the urge to put more efficient versions of each effect in your decks, but resisting that urge may be better for you in the long run. Cards with narrower uses incentivize creativity and synergy and bring your power level down into a range that most players can match or compete within. Most importantly, thinking outside the box will make you a much better Magic player in every way, so that when you return to the strongest cards in our format, you will know how to utilize them correctly. So, Space Commanders, command received!
That was a good one. I feel good after that episode. I feel like a lot of the time we're saying, like, this is how to make, your deck more efficient. If you run by this, like, this is a way of being like, hey, Commander is about experimentation and different stuff. Use these weird, wacky cards.
Yeah, I think there's sort of like an inherent narrative behind most sort of Magic podcasts of like, when they recommend a card, what they are really saying is like, if you want to play powerful games.
Yes.
But like, it's important to note that sometimes we just want to have more fun games. And actually, you can learn some stuff.
And I hope you can hear it in our voices when we're talking about these cards. They cause excitement.
They are fun.
They're fun.
They're definitely fun. Well, to the listeners out there, do you feel commanded? Are you going to go play some more bad cards now? And what cards do you like to play that have a high ceiling and a low floor? You can send us an email. You can add us on Twitter. You can join our Discord, which is in the show notes, and chat with us. That's the best way to chat with us and other members of our play group. And if you have the time, we'd love if you could leave us a review on whichever podcast you listen to us on. Can't do Google Podcasts, blah, blah, blah. It's so annoying. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, the absolute best way to support our content is our Patreon. It's linked in the show notes. There's lots of ways to support us, lots of different tiers, lots of really cool things you can get from it. And we would like to personally thank Fletcher Cutting for supporting us in the Space Commander tier. You're the best, Fletcher.
You are absolutely a Space Commander top tier in our eyes, which means we're terrified of you.
Yes, you freak us out and we love you.
Yeah, just make sure that, when you sign up when you claim those benefits of the Space Commander tier, it doesn't mean that we're abducted or tortured or anything like that. Please be nice when you ask the Space Commanders to get us to talk about something.
It's fear-inducing.
Yeah.
You have a lot of power.
We appreciate it, but we're scared of you. And of course, thanks again to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring this podcast. They're creating fantastic trading card game accessories in all forms, deck boxes, binders, sleeves. We have a couple of their products and we love them.
Yep, really high quality stuff. Really cool new things they're trying with
colours. Have you seen the pink binder?
I did see the pink binder.
Really pretty.
My binder's like not falling apart yet, but now I'm looking at it and kind of going, fall apart faster.
I'll send the team at Palms Off a message.
Oh, see,
for sure.
Sneak me one, yeah.
All right. Well, you can check out Palms Off Gaming at palmsoffgaming.com.au. But as is tradition, well, we got a Planeswalk. We got to get out of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about something else, and it is your week this week. So where are we going?
We're gonna go to a different state in Australia. We're going to go to New South Wales.
Sweet.
To a really, really amazing place called the Kinchilla Boys Home, which is an organisation that it formerly, a long time ago, well, not that long ago, unfortunately, was a place where members of the Stolen Generation were taken in Australia.
For context, the Stolen Generation is... For those that aren't in Australia might not know, the Stolen Generation is a group of Indigenous people in Australia that when, colonizers and settlers came to Australia, literally were taken out of their childhood beds to be colonized, to be taught Western philosophy of...
They were taught to
Anglican
speak English.
Ideologies,
Don't observe your traditional ways of being. Don't be who you were.
It is quite... confronting.
It's really quite horrific. But basically, Kinchilla Boys Home have now become an organisation that are run by Aboriginal Australians, and they are basically working for their community and supporting their community in the things that they do. Specific.
Just giving them a shout out, or?
Well, I actually have just signed on to a really exciting project. I can't talk too much about it because it's all still a little bit under wraps. But basically, I'm going to be going up to this area of New South Wales and working with a bunch of other actors and a director who is an Aboriginal man, and bringing to life some of the stories of the people from the Kinchilla Boys Home. So we're going to be developing basically a theatre script. Well, a sort of theatre script that's kind of based very exactly on the stories that they share with us.
Wow.
And in consultation with them, we're also going to be offering some of our own knowledge of theatre so that they can experience that and have that as a skill that they have as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. So I'm doing 4 weeks over the course of the next few months, like 1 week at a time, going up, working with the people there, working with the other members of my ensemble. And then, we'll be doing a performance in Sydney. I'll definitely shout it out again closer to the date
and
in case people are in Sydney.
I'll be flying up there. So
Very sweet
I'll bring a Space Commander listeners,
Yeah.
Get Commanded listeners and me to watch. That's incredible.
It's really cool. It's actually my first ever paid acting gig.
Oh,
so,
congratulations!
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I like, obviously it's really cool to be acting and really cool. It's a really cool group of people I'm working with, but like the fact that it's actually going to be helping, it's going to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's really what all great art does, I think.
I think so. And it's also like, it is highlighting an area of Australian history that is so easily brushed under the carpet.
Well, quite intentionally, unfortunately,
Yeah, quite intentionally, it's horrifically upsetting.
Yeah.
And obviously we love to end our podcasts on a very upbeat, happy note. But I think this is a happy note to end on, for sure. This is an incredible project. And I think, turning this into a bit of an interview now, how do you feel as someone who is white, going in and performing in such a play that is kind of, it's in consultation with them, obviously, and you're talking quite directly to them in the research. But do you feel like it's almost you're fulfilling an obligation to spread the awareness because you have a white voice, per se?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I think I'm really excited that so much of the process is going to be about listening. And that's what I'm most excited for.
Being with the community.
Yeah, I really want to actively use my voice in whatever way that the director sees fit, because the director knows much more about this than I do. To basically amplify the voices that are there and that do need to be heard. And so like I'll definitely be talking about it, and I'll be shouting it out, and I'll be really highlighting it however I can. But for me, like it's going to be really about listening, and I'm going to really try and make sure that I'm coming at it from a slant of being like, I'm just sort of a vessel for getting this message across and spreading it out there.
Freaking beautiful, man. It's freaking beautiful. What a good way to end this episode.
It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Well, if you want to fly up to Sydney with me and watch Walt perform,
it'll be in July. I'll get the dates later.
Jump on the Discord and we'll arrange some transportation and get people up there. If you want to come along, it's super cool.
Really cool. I'd love to see you all there.
Keen as. Well, that's it for this episode, Commander Players. We'll see you next time.
Bye.